only half to Jeremy because I got ran over? Maybe that's why you want to pay me half?
That one line had fans cheering and Disney scrambling. Jeremy Renner clapped back hard after Disney allegedly tried to lowball him for Hawkeye Season 2, offering only half his original salary. This, after a near-fatal accident, left him with 38 broken bones, but Renner didn't stop there. He had more to say, and what followed wasn't just a clapback, it was a full-blown reckoning. And then came the sentence, blunt, raw, unforgettable. Do you think I'm only half the Jeremy because I got run over? It wasn't just a question, it was a punch to the gut of corporate coldness. That single line didn't just spark headlines, it cracked open a bigger conversation about worth, resilience, and how even superheroes get treated like spreadsheets. And while that sentence echoed through headlines, something deeper stirred in people watching from the sidelines. This wasn't just about a man or a paycheck. It was about every moment society chooses performance over personhood. Every time someone bounces back from trauma and gets rewarded not with celebration, but with skepticism. Because when someone survives the unthinkable, they're not coming back weaker. They're coming back wiser. And in Jeremy's case, stronger in every sense that matters. The tragedy wasn't just the accident. The tragedy was how quickly his worth was recalculated once he was no longer invincible. In a world obsessed with speed and strength, we often forget healing is the bravest fight. Renner's voice was steady, but the words cut like glass. Maybe that's why you want to pay me half? He said, because I got run over. It was the kind of statement that made people pause mid-scroll, sit up straighter, and play it again. Because under the sarcasm was real pain, real disappointment.
You're a Hawkeye!
Who the hell are you?
The context? Disney had approached Renner to return as Clint Barton in Hawkeye Season 2. But the deal? It came with half the pay he got for Season 1. No bonuses, no discussion, just less. Like his near-death experience had knocked a few zeros off his value. And here's what made it worse. He wasn't even demanding a raise. I didn't ask for more money, he explained. Just pay me what I got before. That's what turned this from a money story to a respect story. And Disney? They weren't looking too good. Imagine this. You survive a 14,000-pound snowplow running over your body. You spend months rebuilding yourself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and when you're finally ready to return to work, your employer says, "Hey, we'll give you 50%. That's what Renner was facing. Disney didn't just lowball him, they did it after his accident, after his recovery, after his life almost ended. Renner didn't scream, he didn't tweet. He told the truth, plain and powerful. It's going to take me twice the work, twice the time, and twice the energy for half the pay. 8 months of shooting, action scenes, stunts, physical exhaustion. He didn't say no because of ego. He said no because his body had already been through war. He said no to protect his health, his daughter, his time. I'm not going to risk permanent damage, he said, and can you blame him? Now, here's the twist. Renner wasn't mad at Marvel. He made that clear. He loves the character, loves the creative team. This wasn't about storylines or scripts. It was about accountants. This is not Marvel, Renner said, and this is just Disney. Not even all of Disney, just the money guys, like the penny pinchers.
Asked me to do the Season 2, and they offered me half the money. And I'm like, well, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money. And so 8 months of my time, essentially, and to do it for half the amount.
Let that land. One of the original 6 Avengers, someone who helped launch the MCU into a global phenomenon, now being treated like an optional expense, a line item to be trimmed. He was there from the beginning. He was part of Endgame. He helped give Marvel its grounded, emotional edge. But to the suits, he was now too expensive, and fans noticed. Social media exploded with anger. You don't lowball an Avenger. He's earned every cent. How dare they devalue Hawkeye? Because this wasn't just about Jeremy Renner, it was about how studios treat the people who build their billion-dollar franchises. This whole situation exposed something fans have been suspecting for a while. The Marvel Cinematic Universe used to be about characters. Now, it's about cost cuts. The heart behind the franchise, the actors, the writers, the fans, was getting buried beneath profit margins. And Renner, he wasn't going to quietly accept it. He wasn't demanding Downey's pay, he just wanted fairness. But Disney's financial team seemed to think differently. Maybe they assumed he'd be too grateful to refuse, that he'd say yes just to be part of the MCU again. Spoiler, they were wrong. Renner didn't fold, he stood his ground. Not just for money, but for what that money represented. Value, respect, and recognition for over a decade of contribution. In a world where actors are sometimes replaced like batteries, Jeremy's stance was rare. It was human and deeply powerful. To fully understand the fire behind Jeremy's words, we have to go back to the day everything changed. January 1st, 2023.
The dramatic body camera video shows first responders racing to rescue Jeremy Renner after a 7-ton plow nearly crushed the Avengers star to death. Medics are seen providing life-saving aid to Renner as deputies arrive to his Nevada property on January 1st. A critically injured Renner is on the ground with a pool of blood in the snow where he was run over.
Right where his blood is at, that's right where it all happened.
It was snowing like mad in Lake Tahoe. Jeremy and his family were snowed in, power gone, roads blocked. So Jeremy did what any dad would. He grabbed his snowcat to clear a path. Then, disaster. While helping his nephew move a stuck car, the snowcat slipped into motion. It was sliding, fast, and straight toward his nephew. Jeremy jumped out and tried to stop it, but he slipped. And before he could move, it ran over him. That's 14,000 pounds of steel, crushing his body. His ribs shattered, his leg twisted, his eye came out of its socket, his lung collapsed, and somehow he stayed conscious.
Renner broke more than 30 bones from his shins to his eye socket, and one rib pierced his liver.
I'm thinking, like, what's my body look like? Am I just gonna be like a spine and a brain, like a science experiment?
I saw my eye. I'll worry about that later. I saw my leg. I'll worry about that later. Just breathe. He lay there in the snow for 45 minutes, alone and broken, but alive. And he fought. He fought to stay awake, to stay breathing, to survive, because giving up wasn't an option. Not for Ava, his daughter, not for himself. That man, that survivor, was the same one Disney thought should work double for half. And when he said no, when he called them out, it wasn't his ego, it was his clarity. What Disney saw as broken, the world saw as rebuilt. It's easy to forget that Renner's contribution to Marvel was never just physical. His portrayal of Clint Barton brought something rare to the MCU, a character who was scared, flawed, loyal, and stubbornly human. In a universe full of gods and gadgets, Hawkeye was just a man, but maybe that's why fans loved him the most. So, when that man was crushed by a snowplow and still managed to walk again, act again, and speak his truth, that wasn't weakness. That was the climax of a superhero arc. And here's the twist Marvel never scripted. When the real battle came, Jeremy Renner didn't need arrows. He used his voice. What had happened with Jeremy was horrifying. When the snowcat pinned Jeremy, there was no dramatic music, just ice, blood, and breath. His nephew watched in horror. Help was 45 minutes away. And Jeremy, he wasn't even screaming. He was calculating, prioritizing. His skull cracked, his ribcage caved in, his jaw fractured, but his brain stayed sharp. Breathe, he told himself. Just breathe. And he did, using techniques he learned as a kid, attending Lamaze classes with his mom. Who knew childbirth breathing would save me from a snowplow? He later joked. But it did. At one point, he flatlined, died, came back, then died again. And when the pain finally numbed, he thought, so this is dying. Except he wasn't ready to go. Not today. Not like this. Doctors rushed him into surgery. Multiple surgeries, metal plates in his ribs, titanium rods in his legs, screws in his jaw. He looked like a machine, but he was still here. When the press said he had 38 broken bones, he laughed. Nah, it was more like 40-something. They just stopped counting. That humor? That was survival too. Within weeks, he was walking with a cane. Within months, he was doing physical therapy, but none of it was easy. Every breath was hurting, every joint was aching. Still, his focus wasn't just healing himself, it was about healing the people around him, his daughter, his nephew, his family. If I get better, they'll stop hurting too, he said, and he didn't want pity, he wanted peace. Even in agony, Jeremy Renner was showing up for others. What pulled Jeremy through the pain wasn't fame or fans, it was his daughter, Ava. He set goals. Stand at her birthday party, smile without wincing, dance with her again. Each step was a milestone, a win. And then came the hardest one, facing the mirror. Not for vanity, but for acceptance. Yes, he looked different, moved differently. But inside, he was stronger. I forgave myself, he said, not for the accident, but for the guilt, for scaring his family, for surviving. And that's what made Disney's offer sting so deeply. After clawing his way back from the brink, they didn't see a warrior. They saw a discount. They missed the heart, the grit, the resilience, all the things that truly define a hero. Before he was Hawkeye, he was a struggling actor in Modesto, California, working as a makeup artist, doing indie films, selling snow globes even. His breakthrough came in 2002, playing Jeffrey Dahmer in a haunting indie film. Then The Hurt Locker happened. Boom, Oscar nomination. Then The Town, another one. By 2012, he was in the Avengers, one of the 6. Not flashy like Iron Man, not thunderous like Thor, but quiet, lethal, human, Hawkeye, and he didn't fly or shapeshift, but he hit the mark. Every time, and that's what fans loved. Jeremy grounded the team, gave the franchise its pulse. He wasn't just a guy with a bow, he was the soul of the story. Every franchise has spectacle, few have sincerity. Renner brought both. For over a decade, Jeremy gave everything, not just his body, but his time, his voice, his heart. But the second his body got broken, the math changed. Suddenly, he wasn't leading man material, he was a financial risk. And yet, he still showed up. He still acted. In Mayor of Kingstown, he returned just months after the accident, limping onto set, pushing through pain. Why? Because I'm not done yet, he said, but Disney wasn't seeing that. They weren't watching the man rebuild. They were checking budget sheets. And Jeremy, he called it out. Loud, clear, savage. Studios spend millions building storylines about redemption, recovery, and courage. But when one of their own embodied those themes in real life, they offered him half. Let that sink in. Pay me what I'm worth, or don't call it all. That's not arrogance, that's survival talking. The podcast episode where Jeremy dropped his bombshell wasn't a PR stunt, it wasn't even about drama, it was about clarity, catharsis. He wasn't angry, he wasn't bitter, he was awake. I love the character, he said. I'd love to do it, but I had to defend myself. That sentence said it all. He wasn't closing the door, he was just asking to walk through it with dignity. And that's what made fans rally around him. He wasn't demanding more, he was asking not to be punished for surviving. When Disney chose numbers over nuance, they didn't just lose Renner. They lost trust. They lost credibility. And maybe, just maybe, they lost something money can't buy, loyalty. Jeremy Renner may not have won in a boardroom, but he won in the hearts of millions. His refusal to shrink, to sell himself short, became a statement. Not just to studios, but to every person who's ever been undervalued after hardship. Disney never released a counter-statement. They didn't clarify or apologize, because maybe deep down, they knew. It begs the question, how many other actors are quietly facing this? How many stories go untold because people are afraid to call out billion-dollar giants? Renner did. Calmly, openly, fearlessly. And in doing so, he gave other artists permission to ask for more, to demand fairness, to say no without fear. That's not just career courage, that's character. And fans, they responded the only way they knew how. Support, love, loyalty. People weren't just saying, bring back Hawkeye. They were saying, we see you. We value you. You're whole. Sometimes the real verdict doesn't come from a contract. It comes from a crowd that won't stay silent. This wasn't about bow and arrows or contracts or Hollywood. This was about dignity. A man crushed under 14,000 pounds stood back up, taller than ever. Jeremy Renner reminded us all, surviving doesn't make you less. It makes you more. So now the question hangs in the air. One Disney still hasn't answered. Do you think he's only half the Jeremy because he got run over? Because the rest of us, we know he's twice the man. And that's not up for negotiation. Because the real Hawkeye moment didn't happen on screen. It happened on that podcast when a man with 30 plus broken bones said, "You don't get to devalue me." And in a world quick to forget its heroes, Jeremy reminded everyone some heroes never needed capes. They just needed a mic.